Welcome, everyone. We're here this week for Wholehearted Chats with Françoise Everett. I'm so delighted to have you here, Françoise.
Thank you so much, Lulu. This is exciting. I'm thrilled to be spending some time with you.
Yeah. Let me just introduce a little bit about Françoise. So she's written the chapter 13, and you know the number 13 is the number of the goddess. And it's called Lead from Within, Unleash Your Intuitive Superpower for Confident, Courageous Success. And Françoise helps women around the world to unlock their inner wisdom, feminine power, their hidden richness to foster success in all areas of their life. Her work expands 15 years in the professional services and as a success coach. She also holds a MS in communication management and is a Divine Living certified coach. Some nice, beautiful things there.
Thank you.
So, you know, I know we also are personal friends. So whoever's watching the recording, Françoise and I both live in Atlanta. So we've become personal friends. Through this journey, actually, we became friends. So, and our love, of course, is for empowering women. So tell us a little bit about your story. I loved reading, there was a couple of words in there that I really loved. I loved that you talked about the catalyst. Where is that word? You had three different: the performance paralysis, the habitual hesitation, the indecision disorder, and the no boundary burnout. I was like, yes, 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 yes. I understand. So tell us a bit about your chapter.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you reminded me of that. Because, so the chapter is really focused on how, really my journey, I had been pretty successful, right, for quite a while. And then on this entrepreneurial journey, and that's definitely been my biggest challenge, right? That's where I think my biggest growth has been sort of demanded, my biggest learning experiences, challenges, because it's not for the faint of heart, right? So that's where that chapter was written to represent that area of life. That's where I had my challenges, my breakdowns. And up until, that time, I really did define that performance paralysis is the no boundary burnout, the habitual hesitation, indecision disorder, having not always been that way. But sometimes I think we go through the challenges that really hit us hard, and we kind of go how did I get to this point from where I used to be? I used to feel like I was on top of the world. I used to feel expansive. I used to feel really confident, and adventurous, right? That was a sense that I had. And I felt like I kind of lost it. And it was painful. It was really painful to feel like I had sort of fallen, right? And I'm like, how did I get to this place? But what happened is throughout that, as I would speak with women or coach women or interview women, I realized I wasn't alone in that, right? So it can happen in any area of our lives. It can happen in our health. It can happen in our relationships. For me, it was really had its big bold head, I hit the wall, on the journey in entrepreneurship. And I also think we have certain identities around that. My success identity was totally geared and, having been employed and having been in a, sort of very prestigious consulting firm and having a career like that. And then on this plane, my success identity was completely different when it came to entrepreneurship, because it's a totally different way of thinking, right? So I think that as women on our path, we can hit that place where it's how did I suddenly get here? I didn't used to be hesitant. I didn't used to feel, that indecisive, or anyway. So I just feel that that's where that came from. And then the whole, I kind of share the journey in the chapter of how I finally came through.
Mm-hmm. And in some ways in society, we have this badge of honor of working so hard, work ourselves to the bone. And I loved how you talked about waking up in your life at the time of these realizations coming, forward to you. And, whether it be the entrepreneur journey or the healing journey, if we knew what the journey was, it would be harder to start. We're never quite sure of the journey, but it's worth it. But as we're going through it, of course, there's many pitfalls, stumbling blocks, crossroads, all of that sort of thing. So I really loved how you talked about, that point of surrender, and then also, feeling the warmth of the sun, and the, feeling that kind of divine connection. So to just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm probably not alone in feeling like when you have the warmth of the sun on your face, that you kind of feel bathed in something grand and glorious. But yeah, like in the chapter, I really do share about how I just really hit the wall in my energy level. I was completely exhausted. I had definitely lost a lot of confidence in what I was able to do. I was, a single mom, and I did have support from my ex-husband. Like, we are on excellent terms. So it's not like I was trying to figure everything out on my own all the time, but there were a lot of shifts that had occurred. And in that moment, and I was prone. So I was prone for a long time to insomnia, which I had resolved, but I was also prone to adrenal fatigue, and which I had also resolved, but I fell back into it. And so as kind of healthy as I think I am, and, clean eating as I am and all that, the stress had taken its toll on me. It really had. And I don't think that I was even quite as honest about it then as I am now, but it had totally taken such a toll on me, my well-being, even the mindfulness pieces. And what I had really done was allow myself to be externally directed by, like, who I thought were all the experts in entrepreneurship. And sometimes I think sometimes I almost feel like a little embarrassed that I wasn't more tuned in, but I wasn't. Like, I just didn't really know. And at that point, when I hit that low, I was like, nothing's really working. So, like, what's left is to tune in. Now, I had tuned in internally in my life before. Like, I had done a lot of training with, like, Asian masters around body, mind, spiritual practices. Like, I had done that. This was not new to me. And still, I fell out of it. Still, I fell out. And I think that's like the thing that often it's like hard to admit that you know better, and you still kind of like collapsed in, like, right? So that's what happened. I was exhausted and I couldn't see my way out. And the only place that I could look was internally. And at that point, when I, like I say in the chapter, like, I went to sleep and I couldn't reach a glass of water. It was like, seemed so crazy. But the next morning, when I awoke, I was like, opened those French doors and felt the sun on my face. And I felt this deeper connection to something much deeper, much wider, much more profound, much more glorious, expansive, right? And I was like, okay, start here. Like, sun on your face, warmth, expansion, alignment. Like, it just sort of started to like come this way. And from that point, this was like pivotal for me. I was like, okay, I'm going to start to just slow down, because everything's always about like going faster, and, reaching all these goals. And I was like, I need to slow down so I can hear, so I can be tuned in, so I can be in alignment with what works for me. And I had just given that out. Like, I had lost my sort of sense of power around that, from myself, not power over anything else, but just, I had lost it completely, like completely lost it.
And, I want to remind all the viewers and anyone watching the replay that, the learning journey is, we can have some sort of knowledge and we will be challenged. We will always be challenged, and how we move through that challenge. And, Françoise talks about, that moment of surrender, and kind of the really the coming back to a gentleness in self. So, this has been one of my words this year, has been tender. And I, tell every woman, how tender we are with our children, our babies, our pets. And then it comes to us and we somehow completely do something different. So coming back to that tender place with that, ourselves. So wherever you are, if you're watching this, know that these women have all traveled a journey and they have lots of wisdom to share. And, they're more like guides for you, and you still travel your path. So, we're here to support and give you tools to help you. So I do have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask of Françoise, because we've just been having this beautiful general chat about women and our lives. So I wanted to ask first, what has been one of your biggest challenges and learning experiences?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, like one of my biggest challenges has been really on the path of establishing and growing into entrepreneurship. And I think and the second part was my learnings, is that what you asked me? My
learning experiences.
Learning experiences. Yeah. So actually this is so powerful, right? Because it's in our biggest sort of breakdowns that we get to finally tune in. And so that's where my biggest learning experiences is to be open to what others have to offer in terms of their teachings, right? A lot of people have mastery that I don't have, right? And so I want to hear what they have to say, and then really actually tune in to see if that is resonant. And I found over time too, that many times I was told I was being resistant to something, but what I came to see, and where that didn't always feel true, is I came to see that it wasn't resistance, because I can name it. Like there's definitely places where I can be resistant, but there's a difference between that and something being out of alignment for me, for you, for each one of us. And I think that is like so essential to trusting ourselves on our journey of life and success, whatever that looks like for us, whether it's in our career, in our entrepreneurship, in our health, relationships, right? Like we all desire success on so many levels. And I think it's that piece of like coming into alignment. Like, does that resonate? Is that true for me? Because that's where I left. Like, that's where I left off and kind of dropped down and fell and, was just a big mess. And so, whereas I had it in the past, because I had followed a traditional pathway of what was shown to me and modeled to me, and I had really excelled in a path that wasn't modeled to me, where I made attempts, right, to go down that path. I gave over to, like, I sort of gave my power over to like all the external experts and had left myself behind. And it took a lot to regain that strength and that sort of, to just bring myself back to be like, is this really true? And not take the easy path of like, that must not be true, or I feel not that, like be radically honest with yourself, but also tune in. So it was becoming inner guided again from having been overly outer directed.
Yeah.
That's
beautiful.
the biggest learning for me on this whole.
Yeah. And, when we give our power away, there's a sense of self-betrayal in that we then have that burden as well. So that's a big journey and that's a big subject, so we're not going to go there, but I'm just aware what that brought up with me. It was like, yeah, that's self-betraying, that's not a good place. So let's go on to the next question, which is, what is the best compliment you have received?
So there's a couple. I would say, so a lot of my clients and friends will say that I'm a catalyst for calm and confidence. And that rings really true, because I tend to have a calming effect. And I like that. Like I really receive that. And then I would say also, ever since, like my doing this whole feminine power work in immersion over the last several years, I would say bigger compliments too are when like clients will say that they get more done in 10 minutes than in years of therapy, because this is really designed for women. Or I accomplished with you in 12 weeks what would have taken me 2 years on my own. Or this one is really big, is when they say that their spouses, their husbands are like, oh my God, the shifts in you, in our relationship, in our home are so big. I want you to continue. Like, I take those as huge compliments, but they're not just for me, they're for them too, right? Because they're the ones who are showing up for themselves.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, lovely compliments. Yeah, beautiful. Who has been one of your greatest life teachers? And sometimes, it can be close to home, those ones.
I know. So I did really spend time with that. My very personal one, I would say my father was just an extraordinary man. And he passed away, I think it was 14 years ago. And I remember when I had really opened up to my spiritual path. And he started to get really intrigued. Now, he had been on one for years. He traveled all over the world. He'd always loved, when we were growing up, he would take us to different sort of churches of experiences. But he'd also said to me a long time prior, like when we adopted our daughter from China, he's always like, I love Asia, I love Buddhism. Like, he was always open, like just like open. And towards the end of his life, like I would say maybe the last sort of 2-3 years, we had just really connected on a spiritual level, and we're having all these discovery conversations, exploring, asking each other questions. And that was really powerful. That was really, really powerful for me to have had that time with him before he passed. And there are a lot of times, and he was also an amazing man because he had, but he just was, but he also had started an NGO called Water for Cambodia about water and education and all this stuff that was a big part of, it was like one of his proudest things, other than, his family and his girls. And so I think, and he was always a man who, to me, exuded excellence and elegance in every manner, which could be why I love those qualities too. And yeah, so he's the very close to home person. And then I would also say another person might be like, actually my teacher, Feminine Power, like Dr. Claire Zamet, because I've immersed myself in that work. I think it's incredibly powerful.
Beautiful. What a special time to spend with your father, and, discussing those things that often we don't in just normal life, aren't discussing with each other. There's much more less dinner table talk, I think, nowadays than back, 30 years ago. So, deep conversations are very rewarding with their own families.
Yeah, truly.
So the last question I have for you is, what is one of the major roadblocks to women stepping into their power and leadership? What do you see as one of the main ones that kind of comes in to people's face?
Yeah. Okay. So that one, I think, is really something I have learned much more powerfully from my teacher in Feminine Power, Dr. Claire Zamet, because she has done her whole doctoral research and a lot of her body of work around that. And I've been, as I said, immersed in it for several years now. And I think what holds women back the most is understanding what their authentic confidence is versus like from their feminine essence, from like being in there. We have different descriptions, right? From like masculine models of success to what it looks like to step into our self-actualizing self. And because as women, we've been trained really in a masculine model of success for decades, and we've done extraordinarily well at it. We've sort of learned the masculine way. And it's interesting because 70% of the lifelong learners and people who do self-development work and who want to get to these higher levels, our best selves, is women, but most of the work has been designed on a masculine model. So there are a lot of like needs that aren't met at that level. And so I think what really allows women to step in is to reconnect to themselves and to maybe find that inner leadership, that, right? That's like going back to the chapter of leading from within, but it's really understanding that there is another way. And if we feel it, like if we feel like there's that something more, to know that there's a pathway for women to step into their leadership at that level. And yeah, and I mean, feminine leadership is different. It's different, and it has a lot to offer when we step in to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a lot to offer the world moving forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. We're definitely on agreement with that for more feminine leaders. I know that you have an offer to share with our viewers, so please share that, tell them a little bit, and then you're going to drop the link in after.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so in mid-January, I'm offering it's a Feminine Power Breakthrough Workshop online. It's called Unlock Your Power, Manifest Your Vision, and it is based on the design of, Feminine Power and Dr. Claire Zamet's work. And what I would love to invite women into is a free webinar next week to just learn about it and see if there's any resonance, because you don't know until you find out, right? So I will drop the link to invite them to the free webinar for next week into the comments later. So that sounds good.
Beautiful.
That way they'll have exposure to just see what else is available.
Thank you, Françoise. So yeah, I want to remind the viewers that, if you're looking for a gift for someone for the Christmas period, make sure that you go and, grab one of our books, or grab 2 or 3 and send them off around the world. We love to share what we're doing in the world, and all these women have such a unique and beautiful story to tell. With 22 of us in the book, there's always something that resonates with someone, or if not many of the stories. So I thank you so much for your time today, Françoise. It's lovely to be with you.
Thank you so much, Lulu. It's been beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, blessings to all.